everybody, welcome to the show. I appreciate you tuning in for another brand new review. Don't forget, every Wednesday night at 8:30 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, I'm gonna have a new interview, a new opinion piece, or some horror news for y'all to check out. And throughout the week, I'm still dropping countless reviews in the world of horror, whether it's movies, TV shows, games, books, you name it. If I'm checking it out, it's gonna be here on the show. And if you want to catch all of the content I'm dropping for y'all in the world of horror, the best way is to get subscribed to my link tree. You can do that by going to linktr.ee/T Movie. If you get subscribed to my link tree, that's going to give you access to my YouTube page for the video versions of the show, to your favorite podcasting platforms for the audio only versions of the show, to my Letterboxd page for my written reviews and movie rankings throughout the year, to my TikTok page for my short horror content including movie news and movie premieres, to my Twitch page for my horror gaming including The Thing Remastered and Phasmophobia for the PSVR 2, and to my Fangoria shop page where you can enjoy my 20% discount off anything in the Fangoria shop including a yearly subscription to the physical magazine. Take advantage of this, folks. Hit that subscribe button, as the more followers I get, more content I can put out to you. And don't forget that this month we do have a giveaway. We're giving away a copy of the novelization of X as written by author Tim Wagner. Folks, if you are a big fan of the movie X like I am, this book is a must-have, as it does fill in a few blanks here and there about the characters, and it expands quite a bit on a lot of what they were thinking throughout this film. And that's really, really important because we don't get a lot from the perspective of Pearl or Howard, and this book is very, very juicy, filling in a lot of those details because you remember, we have the prequel Pearl. That book is coming out here and actually just came out this past week here. And we get to see how Pearl kind of came about in her murderous ways. But if you're trying to connect a lot of that tissue, this book has those answers for you. So just comment on a video here in the month of November for a chance to win a copy of X, folks. So what are we talking about here tonight? Well, y'all, it is time for our continued coverage of the phenomenal Showtime TV show, Penny Dreadful. Now, you might remember last week we were talking episode 2, Seance, to where Sir Malcolm Murray and Vanessa Ives conducted a seance at Sir Malcolm Murray and Vanessa Ives took part in a seance that was being thrown at a party that they attended. And when Vanessa ended up being possessed during the seance, more information about Mina was spilt. We found out that Malcolm might have played a bit more of a heavy hand in the disappearance of his daughter, as well as the apparent death of his son. And then we also find out from the translation on the vampire that they were able to kill during the fight that they had, that it seems that Amun-Ra and Amunet are trying to conjoin to basically take over the world, and their key to doing that is Vanessa Ives. Now, Malcolm has not shared this information at all with Vanessa, and that puts her very much in a dangerous position because Vanessa, she's our lead character. She is the one who's kind of guiding all this, and if she doesn't have that information, it means she can't defend herself the way that she needs to. So this brings us here to tonight's episode, Resurrection, because at the end of last week's episode, Seance, we also found out that Proteus, Dr. Frankenstein's creation, was not the first creation that he made. And that episode ended with Proteus being ripped apart by the apparent original monster. Yes, Frankenstein's monster, the one that we know from all the literary texts, countless movies and TV shows. Here is that monster, folks. And the monster's name is Caliban. And we're taken through Caliban's story about how after he was born, he was basically discarded and had to kind of find his own way. And seeing the cruelty of man and the evils and the anger and the passions that are out there, he feared this world that was around him, but ended up catching some pity, a little mercy from an actor in a local theater that ends up employing Caliban and kind of giving that worldly view that he was missing from looking out the window of his original home. And it's a sad story, like it always is, because we know, again, from the countless other iterations of Frankenstein's monster that we've seen before, that this is a monster that was, again, kind of abandoned and left to its own devices and to work out all these different feelings and regain its own intelligence and all these other things on its own, which puts it in such a terrible place because you're kind of gaining all this information in a snap. You know, we see movies like The Fifth Element with Lilu, And like, you could use Avengers with Ultron and how quickly that these beings have to gain all this intelligence. And in most cases, they very quickly determine that the world should be destroyed when they see the way that people are with each other and with animals and just with life in general. And it's very interesting to see that not much has changed in the hundreds of years here between what's playing out in Penny Dreadful and what's coming here in our common world. Now, this takes us to a point to where Caliban reveals that, he's been able to encounter all these things and all these different feelings and meanings in his life. But the one thing that constantly evades him is love, because no matter what he learns and what he aspires to, it doesn't change his appearance and the way that he is just body parts thrown together to make this creature. And that he's very much in the concept of nobody could ever love him. And that's kind of hard to say because Rory Kinnear is a good looking man. This is probably the roughest I've ever seen Rory Kinnear looking. But considering what he normally looks like, and it's not like he's fucking a pig like in Black Mirror, but considering like his everyday, this is very goth. I feel a lot of folks would actually be into Rory Kinnear's appearance as Caliban in this show. I don't know. Y'all tell me in the comments section. Would you hit it? Would you get down with Frankenstein's monster in this show? Let me know. I am so curious about that. But the whole crux here is it takes us back to that original story. And you might remember the whole point of this is that when Frankenstein realizes that there's nobody out there who can ever love him, he wants when the creature realizes that there's nobody out there who could possibly ever love somebody that looks like him, he orders Frankenstein to create him a mate, to create him a partner so that he can have that person who would never look at him that way and they can live on their own, away from humanity, away from the hatred and the anger and all the passion that's out there. They can have their own. And we know that in most iterations, this does not end well, whether it ends in Frankenstein's death or whether it ends in the deaths of his loved ones, like, the woman he was going to marry, or family members, or random little girls that get tossed into streams and drown. This does not end well for folks involved with this. And we have to imagine, especially given the way that we have seen Dr. Frankenstein on this show in these 3 episodes so far, he's quite callous. He's quite rude. He's quite very matter of fact. There is something to where he doesn't connect with humanity. And I think that's very much the purpose to show that this Frankenstein is so different from other iterations that we've had. And that makes him better as a researcher and as an inventor and as a scientist and as a doctor. But as a human being, he's so far shown himself to be not this great person. And that does include his interactions with Proteus as well too, before Proteus was untimely ripped in half by Caliban. So I have a feeling this is probably not going to go the way that Caliban is hoping, but unfortunately for Frankenstein, that's probably going to have repercussions on this lot that he has now joined up with. And speaking of that lot, things are finally official here in this world as Sir Malcolm and Vanessa and Ethan, who finally returns to the fold, and Dr. Frankenstein end up at the zoo for a lead they think that might actually put them on the trail of Mina. And we find out, or at least it's alluded to here, that what was behind all these murders that we've been seeing was in fact werewolves. Now, that is a jump that I might be making because we don't know that for sure. Sir Malcolm, Vanessa, Dr. Frankenstein, and Ethan show up at this zoo expecting probably more vampires or somebody nefarious who might have answers for Mina, and instead they're accosted by a pack of werewolves. Ethan de-escalates the situation, and had Amazon Prime Video not spoiled it for me, I kind of had an inkling. But from his interactions with these wolves who surround him, I think we can put 2 and 2 together and assume that Ethan is a werewolf. Or he at least comes from werewolf lineage, because we see the interaction he has with the leader of this pack that approaches, and no attacks end up happening, and Ethan even goes as far to stop any violence occurring from all these wolves. So I think the only way that's going to actually go down is that Ethan is a wolf himself, or he comes from a family that is intertwined with that. Because remember, Ethan did get that letter from his father. Didn't sound too great, and there were some implications in there. This is likely the implication that we're getting, that Ethan is a werewolf, and going off and trying to live his life avoiding that isn't healthy for him, and it's going to end in even worse things happening. This, though, takes us to where our cadre of demon and vampire and werewolf hunters encounter what I only assume has to be Renfield. And I say that because back when we were discussing episode 1, and I was talking about how this was kind of like League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, and they're taking all these old school horror literary characters, but we don't know the way that they're going to adapt them. Like initially coming in, if you just saw Proteus, you wouldn't know whether or not Proteus was going to end up becoming like this big old murderer, like in most Frankenstein stories. And it turns out it wasn't Proteus, that there was another creature, Caliban, before him, and Caliban's that classic story being told. With Mina and Malcolm Murray, I said we weren't for sure knowing whether or not Jonathan Harker existed, whether Dracula existed at all, and we get some pretty firm confirmation this episode that, yep, the classic Dracula story as we know and have seen has played out at least in some of those ways. That Mina was absolutely married to Jonathan Harker. Jonathan Harker encountered the master of vampires, who could just be another random vampire. We have no actual confirmation that Dracula, in this case here, is like the first vampire, the head vampire, the master vampire. We have no idea about that at all. And I do think that would kind of be slightly humorous if they came at it like the Buffy route, to where, for those of y'all that don't know, Dracula did show up in Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And it's a hilarious episode. Xander gets turned into Renfield basically, and he's trying to turn the Slayer as well too, and we find out that all these parlor tricks that he has, other vampires don't do any of that. This is just stuff that he learned. So either way, I think that'd be a little funny if Penny Dreadful goes that route and Dracula is like an ancient vampire, but Dracula's not the first vampire. We don't know because we have not been given a lot of information, but as I said, this led us into the official forming of this group. Because before, remember, Ethan walked out on them and had disappeared for a little while. And even though him and Frankenstein had a little bit of interaction, the group hadn't really been back together. And this all kind of stems from the fact that they're trying to get information from this random rogue vampire that they all end up coming across, who could lead them to possibly Mina, and if not Mina, at least Dracula himself, who could lead them maybe to Mina. And Ethan brings up the morality of torturing this vampire to get this information. And Malcolm lays it out very plainly that they're supposed to be true to each other and have each other's backs, or else they're all going to end up dead in this quest. And they give Ethan another out, and yet and still, Ethan is still there. And it has to be a large in part to, again, this love triangle that is very, very much like apparent. Ethan and Brona are very much a thing, even though Brona and Dorian Gray are a thing. And we know there's an attraction between Vanessa and Dorian Gray as well. We didn't see Dorian Gray at all in this episode here, but Ethan makes it very clear that one of the biggest reasons why he's standing by and joining up is because of Vanessa. So at a certain point, I think things are going to clash with Mr. Dorian Gray, but they're definitely not happening in this episode. This was exciting, y'all. Again, I thought episode 1 was really, really exciting as it was. Episode 2 was a bit of a lull, but that's because it had to do a lot of back building on the story. Episode 3 was the right mix of both of those elements. And it's a really sexy episode as well, too, honestly. Very, very hot one for sure. But we're left in a strong place here to where we have our official group together. We don't know what their next mission is going to be, but this group is together. But we know there's some problems. Caliban is still expecting a mate from Frankenstein, and we don't know how long Caliban's going to wait before he starts wreaking his vengeance for it not happening. So Caliban's out there. We know werewolves are out there that have some kind of familiarity, or at least they recognize the scent that's on Ethan Chandler. And even though Vanessa has been made aware of some of the information that she's being sought after by these chaotic forces, she has not been told what that really actually means. So there is a lot going on under the surface here in Penny Dreadful, and we're going to keep unraveling all of this as the weeks go by. Let me know in the comment section here, y'all, what you thought of this episode. I am curious because this show has been fire. But that is it tonight. I appreciate y'all tuning in for another brand new review. Hit that subscribe button. I got more great stuff coming your way. My name is T. We've been talking scary movies. Stay scared. Boy here is a big fan of Fangoria. So if you want to check out the world's best horror magazine that's out there. Get a chance to get yourself your own subscription, which I just got my first one back in 2022, and I don't regret it for a second. But if you want your own Fangoria subscription, or you like the Fangoria merchandise, then head over to the Fangoria shop and use my link if you want to save yourself some money, folks. That's an easy one to remember. Just go to shop.fangoria.com/AXDEW. Again, that's shop.fangoria.com/AXDEW, or use my specific code AXDEW at checkout. You can save 20% off your entire order, and that implies 2 subscription and one-time orders as well. You don't want to miss out, folks, because with the magnitude of horror movies we've had released in the last few years, and with what we have on the horizon, Fangoria is going to be your #1 source for all that great, juicy, bloody information in the world of horror. So again, head to shop.fangoria.com. Hey there, folks! Thanks for tuning in to T-Watch This Scary Movie. I appreciate you checking out another review or movie news, whether we're talking movies, TV shows, books, or games, whatever, it's all scary. Remember, you can check out new episodes every Wednesday night at 8:30 p.m. Mountain Standard Time on the YouTube page for video. That's youtube.com/C/Theron Reynolds Scary Movie. Again, youtube.com/C/Theron Reynolds Scary Movie. And you can check out the audio version on all your favorite podcasting platforms. Just search T Watch the Scary Movie or TWASM. Don't forget, my name is T. We've been talking scary movies. Stay scared.